Hi everyone and welcome to today's video. This is a B1 Plus level ESL lesson, and today we're going to be doing a review of the simple past and the present perfect verb tenses. So we're going to look at some experiences that people have in modern life. So have you ever had any of the experiences and what were they like? And if you'd like to share these in the comments, that would be great. Have you ever taken a driving test? Have you ever failed an important test? Have you ever been in the wrong place at the wrong time? And have you ever forgotten what to say? Have you ever had an interview? What was it for and how did it go? And here are some people who are sharing their interview experiences. Jordan says, I had an interview for art school. When I showed them my portfolio of artwork, I realized that I had brought my little sister's collection of paintings. And she says, one week I had a lot of interviews. In the fifth interview, the interviewer asked me why I wanted the job. I couldn't answer her question because I couldn't remember what job I was going for. And Martin says, during an interview in front of 5 people, I felt nervous. I leaned back in my chair and fell off. What a disaster. So think of at least 5 things that can go wrong before, during, or after an interview. And we're going to listen to Tom talk about a job interview when he was young and see if you can figure out what went wrong.
I'll
I'll
never
never
forget the
forget the
first
first
job
job
interview
interview
I
I
attended
attended.
after graduating from university. What a disaster! To start with, I got the address of the company wrong. I thought it was 120 Queen Street. I was confident that I knew where it was, but when I got to Queen Street, there was no number 120. When I checked the address, I discovered that it wasn't Queen Street, it was Queens Avenue, which was on the other side of town. Anyway, I ended up arriving 15 minutes late. I was really flustered and embarrassed. Another thing that made me uncomfortable was the suit I was wearing. I had bought a new suit for the interview, but I was used to wearing jeans and a t-shirt. The interview started okay. However, the questions started to become more challenging, and I realized that I was in over my head. As the time passed, I found it more and more difficult to answer, and I felt very awkward. The only positive thing is that I learned what not to do. I can safely say that I learned from my mistakes. Preparation is the key to success, and since that experience, I always make sure that I am very well prepared whenever I have a meeting. Perhaps it's slightly ironic that these days I'm Director of Human Resources at a well-known accounting firm. I'm responsible for recruiting new staff. Only on occasion do I see someone as badly prepared as I was, and I sometimes share some friendly advice to help them prepare for their next job interview.
Right, so some of the things that went wrong, he went to the wrong address, he arrived late, he was uncomfortable in the suit that he was wearing, and he was not prepared for some of the more difficult questions. All right, have you had an experience like Tom? So we often use the present perfect simple to talk about experiences in our lifetimes. We use the present perfect to talk about a finished event or action that is part of our whole lives. So they have traveled to Argentina 3 times. I have never visited France. In our lifetime is an unfinished time period, and we also use the present perfect simple for other unfinished time periods. I've had 3 interviews this week. She hasn't eaten breakfast this morning. We regularly use the present perfect simple in the question form to start a conversation. Sorry. Have you ever had a bad job interview? Has he ever handed in his homework on time? So it's very common to ask a question in the present perfect and receive an answer in the past simple. So have you ever had a difficult interview? Yes, about 3 years ago, I had an interview that was a complete disaster. Have you ever done something embarrassing at work? Absolutely. One day I fell over when I walked into an important meeting. If you describe an event that happened at a particular time, you have to use the past simple. So you would never say, have you had an interview yesterday? Because yesterday is a finished time period. So for that, you would use the simple past. Did you have an interview yesterday? Also, I have seen that movie last year. That's incorrect because last year is a finished time period. So the correct form would be simple past to say, I saw that movie last year. All right, so we're going to listen to part of Tom's story again. And first, she'll answer these questions, true or false. And then here are some questions that you can answer in the comments to practice using answering questions that are asked in the present perfect.
When I checked the address, I discovered that it wasn't Queen Street, it was Queens Avenue, which was on the other side of town. Anyway, I ended up arriving 15 minutes late. I was really flustered and embarrassed. Another thing that made me uncomfortable was the suit I was wearing. I had bought a new suit for the interview, but I was used to wearing jeans and a t-shirt. The interview started okay. However, the questions started to become more challenging, and I realized that I was in over my head. As the time passed, I found it more and more difficult to answer, and I felt very awkward.
Right, so he discovered that the correct address was Queens Avenue. That is true. He arrived 35 minutes late. That's false. It was only 15 minutes. He wore jeans and a t-shirt in the interview. That's false. He wore a suit. The interview started okay. That's true. And he felt uncomfortable. Um, I, I guess you could say that's true. He felt uncomfortable in a suit, but at the end he said he felt awkward. And then here are some questions that you can answer in the comments. All right, we're going to listen again to the final part of Tom's story and answer the questions.
The only positive thing is that I learned what not to do. I can safely say that I learned from my mistakes. Preparation is the key to success, and since that experience, I always make sure that I am very well prepared whenever I have a meeting. Perhaps it's slightly ironic that these days I'm Director of Human Resources at a well-known accounting firm. I'm responsible for recruiting new staff. Only on occasion do I see someone as badly prepared as I was, and I sometimes share some friendly advice to help them prepare for their next job interview.
All right, so Tom says the only thing he learned was what not to do. What is the key to success? Being well prepared. What is his current job? Director of Human Resources. And which of these is true? He sometimes gives advice to candidates. Okay, so what kind of exam or test is it? Not all exams are written exams. What kinds of exams are these? Well, this looks like a piano. He's playing the piano, so it's a performance type exam. Here looks like she was taking the driver's exam. And here it looks like he is um, either solving equations um, as a type of test. So we can feel uncomfortable in a situation that involved other people and the pressure to do something. So he says, I felt uncomfortable in a suit. He was quiet. I was quiet. No one said anything. We both felt awkward. I couldn't remember the question. I felt embarrassed. So uncomfortable, awkward, embarrassed. And see if you can think of any other words that express this feeling. All right, so we're going to read about Calvin's driving test, and then you can answer the questions. So you can pause the video and read on your own, or you can follow along as I read. I took my driving test in the UK. At the beginning of the practical test, the examiner asked me to read the license plate of a nearby car. Well, my eyesight is fine, but I'm colorblind. when he said the red car on the left, I wasn't sure which car he meant. So I read the license plate of the one I thought he was pointing to. Unfortunately, I chose the wrong one. He asked me angrily, "Are you colorblind?" When I said yes, there was an awkward silence. So why is this a practical test? Well, it's not using pencil and paper or a computer. He's actually going to test his ability to drive. What do you find on a license plate? Well, most places it's a series of letters and numbers. And do you think that Calvin passed the driving test? So we're not sure. I don't think there are any rules about, at least in the United States, about colorblind people being unable to drive, but we'll find out. So we use the past simple when talking about a specific or particular time in the past, and that time is finished. So take a look at the verb tenses in bold, and why didn't the writer use the present perfect simple? So here I took, well, the driving test is over, so it's a finished time period. The examiner asked me, we don't use the present perfect simple because, again, we're talking about a past finished event. And then he said, I wasn't sure what he meant. So all of these are simple past because we're talking about a driving exam that is finished and occurred in the past. All right, so now complete these sentences with either the present perfect simple or the past simple. You can pause the video, try these on your own, and then restart when you're ready to check your answers. So I'm afraid that I haven't studied much this year. I need to work hard between now and the final exams. So here we use the present perfect because this year is not yet over. So next one, have you seen? Have you seen that new science fiction movie Galaxia? It's amazing. Here we use have you seen because perhaps the movie is still playing at the cinema. Now this one it could depend if the movie has already come and gone or if it's not being streamed anymore, then you might say did you see it? But here we're assuming that the movie is still available. Last week the teacher arrived to class late to class every day. So here last week we're talking about a finished time period. So I have never attended a concert. Oh, wait, that's not true. I went to one when I was young. So here in the first part, they use present perfect because he's talking about the beginning of his life until now. He's still alive, his life is not over. But then he remembered that in his youth, which is a completed time period, that he did go to a concert, so he uses the past simple went. So Chris and James haven't spoken for several months. They had a big argument. So here, if the year is not over, we would use the present perfect simple because, so suppose it's September, there is still the opportunity. I mean, they still could speak over the next few months. Um, so it's not really a completed time period, but the argument they had is completed action in the past. Now, if the time period was over, if we're recalling something in the past, that maybe now they're speaking to each other again, we might use the simple past for both. Chris and James didn't speak for several months. they had a big argument, but now they are speaking to each other again. Okay, I didn't read many books last year, but let's say I didn't read many books last year, but or actually, I think this would be the positive. I read many books last year, but I haven't read one for a few months. This last year is a completed time period, and the last few months is not completed, so we would use the present perfect. All right, now again, you're going to complete the text with the present perfect simple or the past simple. Pause the video, try it on your own, and then restart when you're ready to check your answers. So here I have had difficult exams. When I was a teenager, I played the clarinet. I used to take music exams, and some of them included a brief oral exam. I had to answer questions about the piece of music I played and the composer. I remember taking my grade 8 exam. The practical part went very well, but when it came to the oral exam, my mind went completely blank. After spending hours studying, I could not remember the name of the composer, Mozart, but that was about it. All right, so now you're going to read through this and see if you can find and correct the 6 verb tense mistakes. Pause the video, try that on your own, and then restart when you're ready to check your answers. Okay, I spoke Spanish for about 25 years, so that should be I have spoken because the person's life is not yet over. But when I was at school, I haven't spoken it well. Well, school is a past finished event, so it would be I didn't speak it well. In grade 10, I've had, so it would just be I had, simple past, to take an oral exam in Spanish. Although my Spanish wasn't bad, I was feeling very nervous before the exam. The exam started badly, and I couldn't understand what the examiner was asking me. I tried to apologize and explain that I was feeling embarrassed, but oops, I made the classic mistake of saying estoy embarazada, although the word embarazada sounds like the English word embarrassed. Estoy embarazada actually means I'm pregnant. I'm happy that I didn't have to do an exam in years. So I'm happy that I haven't had to do an exam in years. All right, so now in the comments, you can share an awkward experience that you had. Um, Include where were you, what happened, who was there with you in the same place, what did you do, how did it feel, and how did it end? And that brings us to the end of today's video. Please like, subscribe, share, leave comments, and I will see you next time. Thanks for watching. Bye.